She was hungry, poor, and had no proper place to sleep. He was rich, powerful, and had everything money could buy, but when his car broke down in the middle of the road, she did something no one saw coming. How did one small act of kindness from a poor girl change her life? Sit back and find out as we dive into this powerful story. This is the story of how a poor homeless girl helped a young billionaire, and her life changed for good. Lagos, 2025, a city where billionaire buildings tower beside crumbling shanties, and the sound of opportunity often drowns beneath the horns of traffic and the cries of survival. Beneath a rusted bridge at Ojuelegba, Sarah adjusted the tattered scarf around her head as the morning sun pierced through the smog-filled sky. At just 22, she had mastered the rhythm of the streets. A former schoolgirl turned mechanic's daughter, turned orphan, turned survivor. With a small backpack slung across her shoulders, holding a wrench, a Bible, and a photo of her late father, she moved like someone with purpose in a world that had stolen everything but her determination. Hunger was her daily companion, but it had taught her resilience. She scanned the market's edges for scraps, not just of food, but of parts, ideas, and moments of hope. The traders knew her. Some pitied her. Others mocked her. Still, she kept her head down and her mind sharp. Her greatest skill? Reading people and machines. Just like her father taught her, back when the scent of engine oil meant family and not filth. She could identify a faulty carburetor by sound and strip a bike engine blindfolded. But no one cared, not here, not yet. Each night, Sarah returned to her corner near the abandoned trailer yard, a makeshift home stitched from broken tarpaulin, discarded campaign banners, and a battered radio that still caught static gospel. But sleep rarely came easy. The city never truly slept, especially for girls like her. Thieves lurked, drunks stumbled, and the occasional patrol officer treated the homeless like pests. Still, she stayed. Her refuge was her mind, filled with memories of her father, Adewale the Auto King, as he was known in their neighborhood of Mushin. He taught her everything, from tightening bolts to reading between a car's misfires. The last words he spoke still echoed in her ears: "Sarah, machines may break, but you must never let your spirit do the same." Then came the day that stole him. A reckless Danfo driver sped through red and crashed headlong into his workshop. 1 minute, he was tuning an SUV, the next, he was gone. The court case vanished with the driver. Insurance? A fantasy. All Sarah had left was her father's memory and his rusting toolbox. She kept it wrapped in cloth and guarded it like treasure. No boy, no gang, no hunger had managed to take it. Not yet. In the daytime, Sarah often wandered near local mechanic yards. She watched from a distance, offering silent solutions to problems their workers fumbled to fix. Once, an apprentice struggled with a stubborn exhaust valve, and Sarah couldn't help herself. She walked over, gave him a tip, and melted back into the crowd before he could say thanks. The mechanic world still whispered her father's name. Adewale's girl? That one Sabi motor, they'd say, half impressed, half dismissive. But no one offered her a job. She was a girl. She was homeless. She was dirty. Never mind the brilliance in her hands. Society had already drawn lines she wasn't meant to cross. But Sarah kept learning. Her mind was her sanctuary. She read old manuals she found in trash heaps. She rewired dead batteries for pocket change. And she prayed, not for miracles, but for moments. Moments like the one that was coming, the day fate would drive a silver Bentley into her path and change everything. One sweltering afternoon, as she sat beneath a mango tree sketching engine parts into the dirt, Sarah noticed something odd. A silver Bentley stalled at a junction nearby, steam hissing from under the hood. She stood slowly, instinct kicking in. The driver, an older man in a brown uniform, opened the hood and scratched his head. Behind the tinted window sat a man in a crisp white shirt, sunglasses on, clearly agitated. Something told her this moment wasn't ordinary. She walked over. "Sir, it's your radiator," she said, wiping her greasy hands on her trousers. The driver blinked. "How do you know?" She stepped forward. "Because that steam isn't from oil, it's coolant. And your fan belt's worn." The driver scoffed. The man in the car stepped out. "Let her try," he said, voice low but commanding. That was the first time Ethan Adewale looked into her eyes. And though he didn't know it yet, he wasn't just meeting a girl who could fix his car. He was meeting the woman who would one day fix his life. Rain pattered gently on the hood as Sarah stepped back from the now purring Bentley, wiping her hands with a rag pulled from her back pocket. Ethan stood silent for a moment, captivated not by her appearance soaked and dusty, but by the fierce confidence she carried like armor. "You did that in 5 minutes," he said. "Most of my mechanics can't even get the hood open that fast." Sarah shrugged. "Your fan belt was slipping. Radiator's fine, but if you keep ignoring it, your gasket will give up next." Mr. Cola cleared his throat impatiently, eyeing Sarah with open suspicion. "Olga, we should go." Ethan ignored him. "You have a name?" "Sarah," she replied, meeting his gaze. "Sarah Adewale." The name made him blink. It was familiar. Then it hit him, Adewale. As in Adewale the Auto King. "Wait, your father wouldn't happen to be?" "Was," she interrupted quietly. "He was my father." Ethan asked her to step into the Bentley to escape the rain. Mr. Cola muttered under his breath but opened the door. Sarah hesitated. She had never sat in a luxury car, let alone a Bentley with white leather seats and a mahogany dashboard. She slid in awkwardly, clutching her rag in her hands to avoid staining anything. Ethan sat opposite her in the spacious back seat, removing his wet blazer. "Your dad trained my uncle," he said. "I was a teenager back then. He used to brag about this little girl who could change brake pads better than grown men." Sarah let out a soft, reluctant smile. "He used to say that to everyone." The car was quiet for a moment, filled only with the hum of the rain. Then Ethan leaned forward. "What happened to you?" The question was gentle, sincere. Sarah inhaled. "After he died, the shop was gone. No one would hire a girl mechanic. I've been on the streets ever since." Ethan sat back, exhaling like someone realizing the world was more broken than he thought. "You shouldn't be fixing cars in the rain," he finally said. "You should be running a garage. Training others. Building something." He paused. "Would you work for me, Sarah?" Sarah blinked. "Work for you," she echoed, unsure if she'd heard right. Ethan nodded, watching her with a calm certainty. "Yes. I'm opening a community-centered auto innovation hub in Lekki, part of my tech foundation. We need people who understand machines and understand the streets. You're both." Sarah looked away, her fingers tightening around the rag. "I'm not like your people. I don't speak perfect English, I don't wear suits. I barely eat twice a day." Ethan smiled gently. "Neither did I, once." The words hung between them like a fragile bridge. "Look," he added, "this isn't charity. You're talented, sharp, and you've already fixed the toughest car in my collection. I believe in solving problems, and you're not a problem, Sarah. You're a solution waiting to happen." Sarah's eyes brimmed with something she hadn't felt in years, the sting of hope. She looked at him, really looked at him, this man in polished shoes who saw something valuable in her grease-stained hands. "If you're serious," she said cautiously, "I'll show up. I'll prove I belong." Ethan's smile widened. "Good. Be at Adewale Autotech in Lekki by 8 a.m. tomorrow." As the Bentley rolled away, leaving tire tracks in the wet road, Sarah stood frozen under a flickering street lamp, clutching the card Ethan had given her like it was made of gold. Adewale Autotech, Lekki Phase 1. Her name was on the street, but her future now lived in that single piece of card. That night, back at her tarp-covered shelter beneath the bridge, she couldn't sleep. Not because of the rats, or the distant sirens, or the wind trying to steal her only blanket. But because her heart was alive, beating like an engine finally given ignition. Was this real? Would he still remember her tomorrow? Sarah stared up at the moon through a crack in the torn tarpaulin. She whispered to herself, "Daddy, I think something just changed." And she was right. In the days ahead, her name would travel across tech meetings, investor conferences, and even the gossip blogs. But for now, it was just Sarah, the homeless girl with a gift, preparing to step into a world that didn't expect her, but would never forget her. And in a penthouse across the city, Ethan poured himself a glass of palm wine, staring out the window. Something about that girl, he murmured. Something real. By 7:45 a.m., Sarah stood at the entrance of Adato Autotech, Lagos' most advanced automotive innovation hub, feeling like an intruder in a temple of glass and steel. Her scarf had been replaced with a neatly combed puff, her dusty trousers with clean jeans gifted by Ngozi, her street friend, who whispered, "Go make us proud." Even with her nerves tightened like bolts in an overworked engine, she stepped in. The glass doors opened silently. Inside, she was greeted by a flood of sleek machines, high-end diagnostic equipment, and staff in crisp uniforms typing away at floating smart screens. The marble floor glistened under her feet like polished chrome, and digital maps lined the walls, showcasing real-time diagnostics from cars across Africa. But it wasn't the future that scared Sarah, it was the eyes. Everywhere she turned, heads tilted. Whispers danced across the air like smoke. "Who let her in?" someone muttered. "That's the girl from the streets," said another. Then, like a scene from a movie, Ethan appeared, dressed down in jeans and a black polo. "Sarah," he called, waving her over with a smile that silenced the room. "Everyone, meet our newest engineer in training. Any doubts? Talk to me." Sarah's first assignment came faster than she expected. Ethan led her through an automated door into the Red Bay, the experimental wing where the company's smartest minds tested self-diagnostic vehicles. "That's your desk," Ethan said, pointing to a console beside a complex AI-integrated hybrid. "Let's see what you've got." He left her with a nod. Almost instantly, a tall, clean-cut man in a designer lab coat approached her. His name tag read, ENGR. Dennis, Lead Systems. "You're Ethan's pet project?" he asked, voice dripping with sarcasm. "Let me guess, you tighten bolts with magic?" The other engineers snickered. Sarah didn't answer. Instead, she turned to the car, a malfunctioning E-Phoenix prototype that had stumped the team for a week. She crouched, listened, traced her fingers across the undercarriage, and then said softly, "Your AI isn't faulty. Your heat regulator is feeding it false signals." Dennis laughed. "You got that by touching it?" "By hearing it," she said. "Your synthetic valve is hissing. It's not the AI." She popped the hood, made 2 adjustments with a torque wrench, and ran a reboot. The car whirred, its lights blinked, and the dashboard cleared. Silence. Ethan, watching from the observation deck, smiled. "Told you," he whispered. Later that afternoon, Sarah sat alone in the employee cafe, a sleek lounge with glass walls overlooking a fountain. Her lunch was simple yam and stew, wrapped in foil from the cafeteria, but her appetite was overshadowed by whispers. She could feel their stares slicing through her like cold wind. Ethan entered, speaking with a Japanese investor, but paused when he saw her alone. He gave a short nod and continued, but his eyes lingered just a second longer. His assistant, Lami, leaned close to him. "Sir, the staff are asking questions. They think you're emotionally involved." Ethan's expression didn't change. "She's gifted. That's all they need to know." But in truth, even he couldn't deny the pull. It wasn't romance, not yet. It was admiration. Curiosity. The kind that sparked only once in a lifetime. Sarah, unaware of the conversation above her, sat staring at a digital display of moving car parts. She didn't want to be a charity case. She wanted to be great. And if this world was testing her, she would pass with flying engines. Her phone buzzed. It was Ngozi. "You still okay?" Sarah smiled and replied, "Better than okay. I think I'm where I belong." 2 days later, Ethan invited Sarah to a prestigious tech auto expo in Ikoyi. "It's time the world sees you," he said, handing her a deep blue blazer and matching heels. Sarah, wide-eyed, nodded. With help from Lami, she wore her first makeup, tied her natural hair into an elegant bun, and stepped into the gala like a queen disguised as a mechanic. Flashbulbs popped the moment she entered beside Ethan. Influencers whispered. Investors stared. News anchors asked, "Who is she?" As they walked across the venue, Ethan placed a hand on her back and introduced her. "This is Sarah Adewale, one of Nigeria's rising innovators." Murmurs spread like fire. "She's from the streets. Is this real? She fixed the Bentley?" Sarah tried to breathe. Then she saw something that made her knees lock, a framed portrait of her father among Nigeria's auto pioneers. Beneath it, Adato Legacy, honoring our past. Her eyes welled up. "You did this," she whispered. Ethan nodded. "Your story's not just starting, Sarah. It's already part of something bigger." As applause erupted from the audience, Sarah stepped onto the stage, not as a mechanic's daughter, but as the future of innovation. Ethan and Sarah had grown inseparable not by romance, but by rhythm. Every morning, their footsteps echoed in harmony across the marble halls of Adewale Autotech. They spoke the same mechanical language, often finishing each other's sentences in technical meetings. Where others saw wires and steel, they saw design and possibility. One evening, after a long session perfecting the new electric suspension model, Ethan walked Sarah to his private workroom, a cozy glass enclosure overlooking the Lekki skyline. "I want you to have something," he said, unlocking a drawer. He handed her a worn, brown box. Inside was a pair of faded leather gloves. "These were my grandfather's, the man who taught me to love engines. He gave them to my dad, and Dad gave them to me when I built my first car prototype at 18. Sarah stared at them, fingers trembling. "Why me?" Ethan smiled. "Because you remind me of what this was all about before the press, the stock prices, the flash. You still love the machine. Not the noise around it." Sarah slipped them on slowly, reverently. "They fit," she whispered. He nodded. "Of course they do. They were always meant to." The warmth didn't last. By the next morning, Sarah's face was plastered on 2 major gossip blogs, from Bridge to Billionaire, who was Ethan's mystery girl, and worse, sleeping her way to success. The pictures were from the tech gala, Sarah in the blue blazer, Ethan's hand on her back. The headlines oozed venom. Inside the boardroom, the mood was ice cold. Ethan sat surrounded by shareholders, sponsors, and his PR head, arms crossed. "This isn't just a scandal," barked Mr. Shola, one of the senior board members. "This is a threat to our credibility." Another added, "What happens when your investors think you've replaced merit with charity, or worse, with personal interest?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Sarah is one of the most capable engineers I've met. She's a distraction," Shola snapped. "And if this continues, our funding from NorthTech will vanish." Ethan felt the walls closing in. His world, calculated, controlled, had become a storm of accusation. Outside, Sarah passed by unknowingly, smiling slightly as she cradled the gloves in her hand. But inside, the battle for her place and for his heart was reaching a boiling point. Sarah saw the article later that night in the employee lounge, left open on someone's tablet. Her breath caught. Sleeping her way to success? From Bridge to Billionaire? She scrolled down, her hands shaking, seeing comments, some mocking, some vile. That night, she didn't sleep. The gloves lay on her chest, but now they felt heavier than steel. By morning, her locker was spray-painted with Pet Project. Lami tried to comfort her. "Ignore them. Ethan believes in you." But belief wasn't enough, not when the world saw her as a joke. That afternoon, Sarah entered the Red Bay, her chest tight. The team went quiet. She walked to her station, took off the gloves, folded her lab coat, and laid her ID card on top. She glanced at Ethan's office, empty. Her eyes welled up, but she didn't let them fall. She walked out with her chin up, each step an anchor tearing through her chest. No one stopped her. Outside, the wind blew stronger than usual. Rain clouds gathered, echoing the feeling in her bones. The girl who fixed Ethan's car was now broken herself, by whispers sharper than knives. Ethan didn't notice her absence until dusk. He entered the lab and found only silence until his eyes landed on her desk. The gloves. The card. The coat. A sinking feeling filled him like oil in a flooded engine. He ran outside, called her name, dialed her number, no answer. That night, the annual Tech for Tomorrow gala opened with press lining up like wolves. Ethan stood backstage, numb, until he heard the host announce him. He walked on stage, looked out at hundreds of flashing lights and blinking lenses. He held the mic and paused. "You're all expecting a pitch," he began. "But I'm not here to sell you innovation. I'm here to talk about integrity." The hall went still. "Sarah Adiwale is not my project. She's not my charity case. She's the most gifted person I've worked with in a decade. If you can't handle that, walk out now." A few gasps. Some left. Most stayed. He continued, voice firm, eyes sharp. The world didn't need another rich man fixing machines. It needed someone like her, someone who knows how to fix people. Including me. As applause rose, Ethan left the stage, entered his car, and drove straight into the Lagos night, heart racing, headlights searching the streets for the one thing he wasn't willing to lose. Ethan drove through the winding roads of Lagos as if his life depended on it. The GPS was no help now, he was chasing a memory. A feeling. A heartbeat. It was past midnight when his headlights finally cut through the rusted tin sheets and narrow alleyways of the mainland slum. There, beneath the half-broken billboard where his Bentley once broke down, sat Sarah, no blazer, no gloves, no badge. Just Sarah. Her eyes locked with his as she stood beside a small sack of clothes. "I was going to leave," she said softly. "Disappear. Start somewhere no one knows my name, or mocks it." Ethan stepped out, the city noise vanishing beneath the weight of his silence. "Don't," he whispered. "Don't leave me in a world that doesn't have you in it." She blinked. The man who commanded boardrooms now looked like a boy afraid of losing something irreplaceable. "I didn't just lose an engineer when you walked out, Sarah. I lost my reason." Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't move. "And what do you want from me now?" Ethan took a step closer. "Everything. But I'll take whatever part of you you're willing to give. Just don't go." She dropped her bag. By dawn, they were walking along a quiet street in Yaba, the city still asleep. Ethan insisted they make a stop, not to his mansion, not to the lab, but to the cemetery where Sarah's father was buried. They stood before the weathered stone that read, "Engineer Philip Adiwale, loved, lost, remembered." Ethan knelt, not in weakness, but reverence. "Sir, your daughter fixed more than my car. She fixed my future. If you don't mind, I'd like her to build it with me." Sarah looked away, blinking back tears. They left flowers, then returned to where it all began, the spot where she first twisted a bolt and changed both their lives. Under that same rusted street lamp, Ethan pulled out a small black box. "These gloves," he began, handing her the same worn pair, now cleaner, softer, "have always been a family heirloom. But today they carry something new." Inside the left glove was a velvet box, and in it, a ring. Sarah gasped. "You're not serious." "I've never been more," he said. "You didn't just fit the gloves, you fit the life I never knew I needed." And with raindrops gently tapping the street, she whispered, "Yes." Their wedding was nothing like the tabloids imagined. It was quiet, deeply personal, and stunning in its simplicity. Set in a restored mechanic garage-turned-event space, the ceremony blended elegance with grit. White roses wrapped around old engine blocks. Oil barrels painted gold lined the aisle. Sarah wore a gown sewn by women from a shelter she had quietly been supporting with her paycheck. It wasn't designer, but it told her story. Ethan, in a simple agbada laced with silver embroidery, waited with a smile that could melt alloy. The guest list included fellow engineers, tech founders, street girls Sarah once lived with, and friends who had watched her rise. Ngozi was her maid of honor. Lami cried through the entire ceremony. And when Ethan said, "I do," his voice didn't shake, but hers did when she said it back. After the ceremony, Ethan took her hand and led her to a corner of the venue where a black tarp covered a metal plaque. He pulled it off to reveal a sign, Sarah's Spark, an Autotech Academy for girls. She gasped. "You did this?" He nodded. "No. We did." She cried, not because she was overwhelmed, but because for once, she felt entirely seen. Years later, in the same garage, Sarah stood in a red jumpsuit, her curls tied back, teaching a group of young girls how to tune an engine. Her hands, still steady, still skilled, now passed on her father's gift to the next generation. In one corner, a framed photo showed her wedding day next to a shadow box holding the gloves, the ring, and a bolt from Ethan's old Bentley. On a mat nearby, their 2-year-old daughter, Zena, played with toy tools, occasionally running up to her mom's leg for attention. Ethan, now CEO of the largest green auto company in West Africa, walked in during one of her sessions. He didn't interrupt. He just watched, proudly. Later that evening, Sarah stepped outside into the same Lagos dusk she once feared. The sunset bathed the streets in orange and hope. "Funny," she said to Zena, picking her up. "Once upon a time, this street was my prison. Now, it's my path." She looked into the camera, or perhaps into the heart of the viewer, and said softly, "Don't let your past decide your worth. Even broken engines run again. Even broken people rise." And with that, she turned and walked into tomorrow. Sometimes, life gives you broken things. A busted car. A cracked heart. A forgotten name. But sometimes, it also gives you tools. Hands. Hope. And when love enters the equation, even a homeless girl can become a bride, a leader, a legacy. Believe in the rebuild. Believe in yourself. Because even the hardest roads can lead home.